as the freedom movement turns to justice. Jo Rose is releasing an interview series with New Yorkers from all walks of life who faced discrimination during the pandemic. She is a first-generation Dominican American with a strong sense of justice. Jo is a medical freedom activist, former New York City Department of Education employee, and survivor of narcissistic abuse, as we discussed in Part 1 of our interview. During Part 2, we discuss examples of current power struggles, emotional intelligence being a sign of other forms of intelligence, and a fundamental disagreement on bodily autonomy regarding one's body as a temple. We also reflect on modern-day dissidents, many of whom are black sheep and often scapegoats naturally gravitating outside groupthink. Going deeper, we explore why materialism is the fundamental flaw of the old crumbling system, as material solutions are sought to solve spiritual problems. As the abusive system enables cowardice and discourages individuality, I ask Jo, how can stories of victory rather than victimhood be more attractive agents of change? And if the elite's tactics are so lazy and absurd, how could they be smart enough to have some grand agenda? I'm Sienna Mae Heath, and this is Leaving the Left for Liberty. Within the context of the pandemic, human error was actually vital in learning lessons. And, I also find it really fascinating because there's been so much talk and chants of freedom and liberty. And now I do see the freedom movement turning to justice and turning to telling stories and saying, hey, can we please get justice for these people who were wounded by the vaccines, by the mandates themselves, and can we consider how to move forward better together? And that's why I really love what you're doing with your interview series of interviewing New Yorkers who were hurt by the mandates. So I'd love to hear more about that. I listened to one interview with Violette and her mother, the young actress who I guess she's 13 now. She's so young and brave. And so tell me more about how the series is going.
So basically, I started this at the end of February. I interviewed about 23 or 26 people. And it was because I just wanted to highlight the fact that, yes, we're in 2023. However, some of us are still suffering the consequences of what happened from years ago. I mean, essentially, we were all in some shape or form abused, right? But it was those of us that resisted the agenda that were punished for the fact that we decided to not comply with what they asked us to do, because it was being done we're being deceived. People were being deceived. Even people that took the vaccines, everybody, unvaccinated and vaccinated people were equally deceived. It's just that the unvaccinated saw through the illusions and through the lies and the manipulation, and we were able to make the decision and stay strong in our convictions of we're not gonna do it. So I decided to just allow them to just have a voice. I have people from all across of life, ethnicities, race, and different age groups, firefighters, police officer, artists, child actor like Violette. Her mother was also a dancer. And the reason why I did that is because everybody seems to think that everything is back to normal. There's nothing happening. Oh, you can go and apply for a job now, even though you're unvaccinated. You can go to the restaurant now. Oh, it's all great now. No, we need to, in order for us to be able to heal, we need to discuss what was the problem. We need to discuss the feelings. We need to discuss, what you did to hurt me and how that affected me, right? And then we need to come to the conclusion of yeah, that was really messed up. That was painful. I'm sorry you went through that. I hear you so-and-so. I feel you so-and-so, right? And let us not pretend that nothing happened, because it did happen. Yes, some of you were deceived, but some people knew and didn't even care to stand up for what was morally correct. And so I just decided to allow them to tell me how was the process? How did you figure it out that the government was mine? Did you always know the government was mine? What was your breaking point? When did you decide that, you know what, I'm not going to do this or whatever? And so it was so interesting because I had, like I said, different people different careers. I even had a child, Violette, and she was just so like, she was like, I have friends, and I'm like, even if my friends didn't want to wear a mask, if they wanted to wear a mask, I mean, I could still be your friend even if you still want to wear your mask, but don't force me to wear the mask, she said. And I'm like, how can a child understand freedom and understand that's your choice and then that's my choice, but adults seem not to be able to get it. So it was pretty interesting. It was very touching. There were some parts where like a person was crying because of the situation that happened in hospital with their mom. And there was people that ended up like not having their family members wanting them to be there anymore because of being unvaccinated or because they didn't want to wear a mask. And so it's just shows raw human emotion. And I'm really, really proud of it because I want people to hear these people's voices and for people to understand that, yeah, it's 2023 now, but we have not forgotten what happened here. And we're going to hear from it, but we're not going to let it go in the sense of like, this is what happened now in 2021 globally. This has never happened. We have had genocides and wars, but this is happening at a global scale. And because we're not being bombed, because we're not being physically hit, people seem to be minimizing our experiences. And so I want to be able to highlight that and to bring it to light and for people to realize like, okay, this is what happened. Well, we need to learn from this and what can we do about it? And the next time something like that happens, maybe we can look at the correct signs and maybe we can see these people as an example of bravery and courage. And if they did it and they were able to stand up against the machine, then maybe it can inspire other people to do the same for when they come and attack us the next time, because there will be a next time.
Well, I mean, I think the next time is already here. Like it just comes in different forms.
Right.
And like I'll bring up a couple of examples, not to get off topic, but just to kind of illustrate that like it happens over and over again. Like with like what's called gender affirming care. Of course, I can't get through a podcast without talking about it. Like I just can't. Yeah, I was making some notes earlier actually. Like, so gender affirming care, like when there's top-down regulations on that, that people will say like, well, that's government overreach. And there's certainly, honestly, I can really see that point of view. Meanwhile, I would say the first act of force, at least prior to the top-down regulations, were men self-identifying into women's spaces and boys self-identifying into girls' spaces. It's the same kind of dynamic, the same power struggle. We see this with abortion too. Like there's the point of view that abortion itself is force. And then there's the point of view that the actual issue is the top-down regulations on abortion. These are examples of power struggles that are happening now. I mean, one might say, okay, the pandemic is over. Let's just move on. Fine, let's move on and look at it from these two angles as well. It happens on issue after issue after issue. It's something we have to address as a nation.
Right. Well, what I find funny is that most of the people, this is not everybody, most of the people that support gender affirming care, whatever, or the people that support abortion, right? I'm not saying it's everybody. They're the main ones that say my body, my choice. But we didn't have my body, my choice, the vaccine you won't force. We didn't have that. So there is a difference because I personally don't support abortion. I'm pro-life. I actually was told when I was 8 years old by my mother that the doctor had told her, because she suffered from high blood pressure, to abort me. So I wouldn't be here had she decided to abort me, right? So based on that story, would never support abortion. Now, when it comes to abortion, there's people that say, well, what if the mother gets raped or incest? And I understand those things because it's painful, but I think that the victims of those abuse should get help, whether it's by church, whether it's by a psychologist, in order for them to be able to deal and cope. Because I don't think a lot of the rape victims or victims of incest, I don't think that they get the emotional support or psychological support or even spiritual support, right? That they should be having. Because I feel like at the end of the day, I feel like, well, the child is innocent of whatever the perpetrator did. But this is not to negate the fact that it's a traumatic experience to be raped. And so they always just use like, oh, well, what rape happens, yeah, but the percent of that happening is very, very minimum. But again, I feel like the women that get raped should be getting assistance of some kind, spiritual, from a church, whatever religion affiliation. But when it comes to the reality is that abortion is being used as a contraceptive. That's the reality for the most part. And the elites are pushing that, right? The government is pushing that. I just feel like, in my opinion, and I don't care if people want to cancel me for saying that, I'm going to say what it is that needs to be said. It is murder. You're killing an innocent child, and it's not your body, it's the child's body. So for me, like, I don't know. There's just, I can't support abortion. I cannot support abortion. From my own personal experience, if my mother would have decided to do it, I wouldn't be here. And I just feel like the baby is innocent. Like, I was innocent of whatever. And my mother was like, well, she already lived her life. And if she had to choose, she would choose to keep me. And regardless of whatever happened between us growing up, I thank her for the opportunity of me being here. I just feel like the way that it's being pushed is just not right, because people are taking it as a joke. I'm seeing people throwing parties and cakes with abortion. I feel like, okay, well, if you're claiming that you're just doing the abortion because, oh, you can't have the baby right now, or because you're not financially stable, whatever, then why are we making a mockery out of it? Why are you having a cake with a baby and just like, I don't know. For me, it's just weird. It just doesn't feel right. And I'm the type of person, when the government pushes something, I feel like maybe you should do the opposite of what they're pushing, right? Just like they're pushing this whole transgender stuff and cutting the penises. Okay, I don't support the whole thing, but if an adult wants to do that and you already seen the consequences, I don't agree with that. If you want to do it, go ahead, do it. But we're talking about doing it to an innocent child. And that's where I feel like with the abortion, that's an innocent baby too. What did the baby do? What did the baby do for you to have to end up finishing his or her life? At the end of the day, what is an abortion? Abortion is you stopping a pregnancy of a baby that is about to start getting formed, and that's you're killing a baby. Like, I don't, I personally, like, even if people are pro-choice or whatever, how do you not see that what is being done? It's you're killing a child. Just like if you take a 10-year-old to go get their penis cut and their breast cut, that's a child. And then when the child grows up, what are you going to tell the child? You can't reverse that back. And then when you get older and you realize, okay, maybe I shouldn't have aborted that child. Maybe you start to have, like, I don't know, guilt trips. What are you going to do about that? You can't go back in time. You can't reverse that abortion. You can't reverse that the girl got her breast cut. You can't reverse that the child got his penis cut off. So I just personally, whatever the government pushes, I do the opposite. I know some people might think, oh, whatever. How can you say that? You're a woman. I just don't agree with that. Like, I've never given birth, so then I might be being biased, but if I had to end up giving life to a child, or and there's a possibility that I might end up passing away, my baby, I'd rather choose my child to live than for me to end the pregnancy, which is to kill the child. And I don't know how can you go around that and say, oh, it's just a bunch of cells, it doesn't have any feelings or whatever. That's a lie. Like, I've seen many videos of people that have worked in abortion clinics in which they have said how the baby was fighting back. And it's just, for me, it's just very traumatizing. And because of my own personal experience, I just can't support it.
I can understand why. The my body, my choice chant has just lost its meaning. And I think that, like, the fundamental disagreement is on the initial use of force. Like, the my body, my choice chant at rallies for medical freedom during the pandemic, like for health freedom in the sense of not wanting to get vaccinated and still wanting your livelihood intact. That made sense to me on a really fundamental level, because it was like, okay, my body is my temple. This, like, right. I get to decide what comes in my body.
Right.
It seems so simple, but, like, for some reason it just was not clicking in place for so many people. It's like, no, this is about what I allow in, not what I push out. And
exactly. Oh, I like the way you put that.
It's so, but isn't it so simple though?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that is really the fundamental disagreement. And same with like the transgender phenomenon of like, okay, if a man self-identifies into a female space, like how is that not seen as force or coercion? They
Right,
don't look at that as force or coercion.
right,
Again, as an instance of someone coming in or something coming in.
right.
And
Yep.
they see the top-down regulations in response to that happening as the
Mhm.
force.
Right. Yeah. That you put it very well put because it makes a lot of sense. I think it was very simple. I like how you said about what goes in my body versus what I push out of my body. And yeah, I think the world has gone mad. And especially because we're seeing a lot of women being the main ones that are like, oh yeah, it's okay, you're a man, you can come to the bathroom, it's cool. And I would think that, I don't know, the feminists will be the main ones pushing against this madness, but they're the main ones that are silent and are encouraging and are okay with male coming to the female sports and dominating and winning and including physically hurting the female athletes because of our differences in body and force and build and power and strength. Which that doesn't mean that we women we're not weak. Like giving birth is a very painful experience that men can handle, right? So men have their different strengths and we have our different strengths, and that's what makes us beautiful as two different genders. And it's amazing to me how God gave us the ability to be able to cope with those two different type of pains, right? And I don't know, I just think it's amazing. But again, the world has gone mad, and like me personally, whatever the elites keep pushing, whatever the government keeps pushing, I just feel like do the opposite of what they say, because it's just, if you think about it, if you sit back and analyze and use common sense, what they keep pushing for us is nothing good. It's nothing good. It's degeneracy. It's nonsense. Um, and it's things that eventually are not going to be better for society, because if you keep pushing abortion, then you're pushing for um, the, how can I say, the murder of innocent babies, millions or billions of babies. And then when you're pushing for children to transition and mutilate themselves, then you're pushing also for the destruction of new life to create, and you're causing chaos and confusion and self-hate. Because then if that child wants to reverse and wants to have a child eventually, oh well, you can't have a child now because you did X, Y, and Z now. So in my opinion, it's kind of like a form of, how do you call this? I cannot think of a name right now. Population control, in my honest opinion. It's population control, it's confusion, it's to dehumanize us, and it's to have us not love ourselves as the gender that we were born into. Because why in the world, what purpose does it serve to cut off your penis? It doesn't serve any purpose. Like if I get a nose job, for example, if I get a nose job, my nose still serves a purpose. My nose purpose is for me to inhale, exhale. If I cut up the penis and the vagina both serve a purpose of to come together in order to create life. Without a penis and a vagina, we cannot continue to reproduce, and we as a society, we will go extinct, right? If I get a boob job, my boobs still serve a purpose. If I end up having a child, I still be able to breastfeed that child. It doesn't, I'm not changing my organ and its function. But when we're talking about, oh, well, we're cutting off the penis, then you're killing the original intent of that organ. That organ will no longer serve for what it was intended to serve. So that's why I'm 110% against all those things, because I feel like it's going against God. When we came out with our noses, our eyes, our ears, and our wombs, and our penis, or whatever, it served a purpose. It wasn't just to be there for decoration. It wasn't because, oh my God, no. That's why God specifically designed male and female, vagina and a penis, so that we can create life. Without those things, and if those things are not functioning, then we can't, as a species, we're done.
I mean, you're not wrong. I just need to take a minute and just like experience how we just like stated the most basic of facts and principles, and somehow we've found ourselves in a society where that is controversial.
Right. Yeah. Isn't it crazy? Years ago, we wouldn't be even having these kind of discussions. Years ago, we wouldn't. It was okay. You're a girl, you're a girl. You're a boy, you're a boy, or whatever the case might be. You don't want to get a vaccine, you can go get a religious exemption. You don't have to do it. I mean, I haven't even done flu shots in years. My own personal decision. I'm fine. But it's even crazy that we have gotten to this point and people do not see what is really behind the push of some of these things, right? Because again, if you serve any good for society, if it was good for society, they wouldn't be pushing. If abortion really was good for society, they wouldn't be pushing abortion. If being transgender was really good for society, they wouldn't be pushing that. Because if you notice, they don't really push you to open up your school. They don't push you to open up your own business. They don't push you to learn real economics, to learn real history, which we know in the school system, they lie to us about the real history. So in my opinion, people need to understand the fact that throughout history, there has been wars, genocide, slavery, right? And it has been because what? The government does it and the people enable them and go along with them. They don't stand up for what's right. And we keep repeating these cycles because we as a human species, we don't learn. We don't want to take self-accountability. We would just rather just let them do whatever, and we'd rather just be part of group thing than to just stand up alone in the corner and be like, I don't want to be part of that because it's wrong. So people have to sit down and analyze society, analyze history. Why do we continue to go through this? Do you really think that the government has our best interest? When we look back, they condoned slavery. They were okay with slavery. They were okay with going to this country and bombing those innocent people. They were okay with lying. They were okay with listening to our conversations. They were okay with just going on the mainstream media and not telling us the truth. Do you really think you can trust somebody of that caliber, that history shown us that they cannot be trusted? Or would you rather just do the opposite and be like, okay, well, something is off, you know? And it's just the fact also that even in schools, you can have a different opinion. You can't say that I'm pro-life in school. You have to say that you are pro-abortion. You can't say, oh, no, I don't support this LGBTQ stuff. You can't say that because it's a problem. The fact that we're not allowed to have a civil discourse is a problem for me. And it just tells me that it's wrong. And I'm not saying this like on a political level because people automatically want to say, oh, left and the right. It's not about the left and the right to me. It's about what I see is a morally correct thing and what I see that they're destroying God's creation. And I'm not going to sit back and be okay with it. I'm going to say something. If people want to cancel me, you can cancel me because I don't support abortion. That's fine. But I'm going to say it anyways.
Well, it's a destruction of conversation, like you said, of discourse. And I think that's like such a fundamentally human experience to just sit down and talk and share and tell stories. People are made of stories. And that's what really woke me up in 2020. It was mostly around the issue of race, where suddenly some voice, it didn't matter, as you know, what race you were. It just some voices under a certain narrative were more than welcome and others were shut down. And I realized as like more and more issues came up and I paid closer attention that my fundamental concern was about storytelling. Like why, and also like the question of like, why can't this story be told and why is this one put up on a pedestal?
Right. No, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I remember back in 2020, being called a white supremacist. I was even called a Russian spy.
Wow.
On Facebook because of the things that I was talking about, the videos that I was making. Yeah, but it's absolutely, I mean, when they decide to allow you to voice certain stories, to allow certain people, but then silence the other people, is because they have some kind of agenda to push. Because even if you disagree with somebody, you would allow them to have that voice, and then you can just maybe have a civil discourse, maybe have a debate and talk it out, see where they're coming from. And even if you don't understand, or whatever the case might be, just allow them to say whatever needs to be said. And maybe we can come in the middle, or maybe we cannot come into the middle because it depends on what it is. So yeah, that's what I think. I remember back in 2020, it was really weird, and having like, in my opinion, having white people even call me white supremacist and a white nationalist has been the craziest thing ever. It has been like the audacity of you to sit here and call me that when you're white and I'm black and I'm just simply speaking because I see an injustice, because I see we're being lied to, because I see we're being deceived, because I've seen this corruption happening over and over again, and it doesn't change it. They just change the way they go about it. And this time it's more sophisticated because it was done at a mental and a spiritual level. So people cannot even see where they're being abused because it's so subtle and it's done in a way that is just so strategic that people, to the average eye, you won't be able to see it because you don't understand what's being done to you, right? So I don't know, I just thought it was hilarious. I thought it was sad. It was pathetic. It was funny at the same time that people would just, oh, well, if you say this, you're an anti-vaxxer. If you don't want to get vaccinated, you're white supremacist, you're a Trump supporter. If you want to get vaccinated, then you're liberal, then you're this. It's just so many nonsense that has nothing to do with it. Like my main reason for not wanting to get this done had nothing to do with my political views or whatever. It was because I felt like something was off. This is not normal. And I don't trust you. I don't trust the government. So therefore, I'm not going to do it. That was my main reason. It wasn't because of who was in office, who wasn't in office. I don't care. Unless, I said to myself, unless Jesus comes down and tells me to do this, I'm not getting this vaccine done. And that's period. That's that. That's it.
And I agree. The tactics were absurd and lazy, really, like intellectually just lazy and nonsensical. And they really lost me at that. Like when they started calling Black people white supremacists, I'm like, well, that's just simply not true. Like there's plenty of other arguments we could make here, but like that's just false.
Right.
And also calling the abuse not only mental but spiritual abuse, I think is spot on. And I think the real flaw is materialism, not capitalism. It's people seeking material solutions to spiritual problems.
Well, I think when it comes to like the elites in the government, I think because they were just so greedy, because you can like money, but when you want to accumulate so much wealth, there's some spiritual deafness there. Like you're spiritually dead, right? Because how much money do you need in order to be happy when you're sitting already on trillions, billions, and millions of dollars? Why is that not enough? Why is that not sufficient? Why doesn't that satisfy you, right? So there's that. But I feel like at one point they already got all the money that they need. And at this point, it's not even, I feel like at some level, I don't think they no longer, it's not that they don't care about money, but I just don't think that's not their main goal at this point. I think their main goal now is just to control the masses. They don't see us as equal. They feel that they're better. They feel that they're God, and we're too stupid. And so they have to tell us how to live, how to get vaccinated, when not to get vaccinated, what restaurant you can go to, because in their opinion, we're still children that need their parents, their abusive parents in this case, in order to guide us. And so at this point, I think now it's mostly control, because I feel like they already have people at the working force and they already have accumulated as much money as they need to. Now it's about just wanting to control the masses, the transhumanism agenda, wanting to take away our empathy, our ability to relate to one another. And that's why they did with the mask and the isolation and things of that nature. To take our ability to be able to have that closeness, that humanity. And that's why they were like, oh, you can't hug this person. You can't do this. You have to stay 6 feet. You have to do. It's all now about the destruction of the human soul. And that's why I believe Joe Biden kept saying throughout his own campaign that this is the battle for the soul of America. What do you mean by the soul of America? Who has a soul? Human beings have a soul. Why are you battling for the soul of America? Like, what's your end plan? So that's what I think they're at now. They already have money. They can buy whoever and do whatever. Now it's about dehumanizing us. It's about taking away our soul. It's about taking away our humanity and turning us into robots, that have no feelings, no emotions, that just do what they're told, that can't think, that can't question, and that can't speak out truth. And that's why I think they did so well with the propaganda and shaming people in order to make them accept a lie. Because who in their mind would sit here, like, if you know someone is lying to you, why would you sit there and accept that? There has to be some kind of mental corruption within you, or lack of courage or fear, or something that's allowing you to be manipulated in that way. When it's, in my opinion, like you said, they were very sloppy. It was just, when I look back at it, I'm like, they were not even that smart. Like, they were saying, oh, put on a mask, and then they will have they will show themselves with no mask next to each other at a game or wherever the hell. Or Nancy Pelosi, well, the hair salons were closed, but she was caught in a hair salon getting her hair done. How can people sit here and be like, how can people sit here and not get angry at that? That was one of the things that got me angry when I saw the hypocrisy, how they were living their lives, being able to get on the private jet, do X, Y, and Z. And like us, the regular quote unquote humans, people, we couldn't do those things because they said so. And people just sat back and like didn't see the hypocrisy. So that's what I think at this point. They don't want money. They already got money. This country's already bankrupt, whatever. And the next step is to just continue to put things in a body to change our DNA, get us sick through the food, water, air, and reduce the population. That's what I think.
It's possible. And you've mentioned dehumanization a couple of times, and that's a theme that I'm really interested in. Actually, in December 2021, I had Charles Eisenstein on, and we talked about the delusion of dehumanization. So the delusion that if you were in someone else's shoes, that you would do differently. And not only is that like a spiritual or psychological delusion, it also, well, we were theorizing that it could also prevent you from seeing clearly, like seeing logically. So if you can't see yourself in another person, then you can't see basic truth and facts clearly either.
Right. Then it also means that you lack empathy, because empathy is the ability for you to feel, to sit back and feel like, okay, well, that didn't happen to me, but I wonder how did so and so feel about what happened to them. I don't have to experience that, but just sit back and imagine yourself in that person's position. How would that make you feel? And then that will make you have room for understanding as to why they do what they do, whatever the case might be. So yeah, and in our society, we do have a lack of empathy. And I think as society is going on, there's less emotional intelligence, like people's emotional intelligence, in my opinion, it's kind of like going down, because if more people had emotional intelligence, then they would have not been okay with the unvaccinated being treated the way that we were treated at large. You know what I mean? Like, if you wanted to get it, fine. And I'm not saying that every vaccinated person is devoid of emotional intelligence. I know vaccinated people that they were against that, and they were like, no, this is wrong. They were vocal about it publicly. I'm talking about the people that sat there and said, oh yeah, the unvaccinated deserves to be treated like this. They deserve that. Fire them from their jobs. Don't let them, whatever. Even families, mothers telling their sons and daughters, you can't come see me because you're not vaccinated. You really have to have a lack of empathy. And I'm not saying completely that you're like devoid of empathy, but your level of empathy is not really that high, for the fact that you were okay with someone being mistreated because of they decided not to get vaccinated. To me, that's just crazy.
I think what we saw was that emotional intelligence is, after all, a sign of other forms of intelligence.
Right.
Because too often people, honestly, like a lot of conservatives will disregard emotional intelligence, will disregard empathy. They'll actually say that too much, well, there's truth. I think too much empathy then can push you into delusion. But you need to have some balance, and you need to have emotional intelligence to see clearly. And a question that's coming up for me is that if the tactics that we were just talking about, if they were so absurd and lazy and unintelligent, how can these people, these elites, possibly be smart enough to actually have some grand agenda?
That's a very good question, actually. I think that's an amazing question. Well, I think it's because we all have our own different upbringing, right? And so I might be at a higher emotional intelligence level than you are, right? And so I noticed something that with a lot of people that are highly educated, this is not to say that everyone that's highly educated has this problem. I don't want people to misconstrue what I'm trying to say. I noticed that with a lot of people that have high degrees and that went to school and that they like to whatever, I noticed that they were the main ones that were pushing this whole agenda, right? And so that tells me that at an intellectual level, they might be higher than me in some capacity or shape or form, whatever. But at an emotional level, they lack that. So me and the way I grew up, in which from a very early age, I was able to spot certain things, whatever the case might be. I think, again, it depends because we're all complex individuals. But I think because of the education system and because people were raised to just believe authority and just trust the government and just go get a government job and just go do this and the American dream this and blah, 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 blah. I think that's why it was so hard for people to see through the manipulation. And it seems like for me, I guess, because I can spot it, for me, it seems like they were dumb and sloppy. But we're talking about fear and we're talking about certain parts of the brain getting hijacked, which can control your ability to either fight when you had to fight. Let's say you see a snake, right? You're scared of snakes. You either are gonna run for your life or you're gonna stay freeze and that snake is gonna beat you, right? And it seems so dumb because I'm like, okay, well, you have legs. Why the hell can you run? You will outrun a freaking snake. But it's not that simple. It's not that simple. Fear activated in the human mind, everybody's gonna react to it differently, right? Because I had fears of things that you might find irrational. But in my mind, hey, I'm scared of a spider. You might love spiders, right? But in my mind, I see spiders as danger. And it can go back again to how we were raised, to the things that we grew up seeing, to how we were developing and things of that nature. But I noticed that the more educated a person was, the more they were able to just push for the agenda. But I think it has to do because of the school system you go in, you're not allowed to be an individual. You have to go. The school system is modeled after the prison system, right? You get on the bus, you have to wait for recess, right? The prisoner has to wait to be given the permission to go outside. They had to wait to go eat lunch. You had to go in the line. You had to sit where they tell you. You had to be in your cell, which is the classroom. And so when we have a society that doesn't allow for individuality, then you're going to have the majority of society saying yes to things. I mean, it was structured to be that way. So why would you want to be outside of that, just like in the family system, especially if you grow up in an unhealthy family system? Well, if everybody else, how come they don't wake up to what's happening in the family? Is it that some of them see it, but they want to do something about it? Some of them have been brainwashed. They don't understand what's happening. And so in order for that to thrive, it has to be an enabling system. And I think within society, people enable the government. There were people that saw through those illusions and through the stuff, but they didn't want to say anything because, oh, I'm going to lose my career, or I'm going to lose my reputation, or I'm going to lose my connection, or X, Y, and Z. So it all thrives because of, in my opinion, enabling. And that happens throughout every society, every group that's unhealthy and toxic is because people enable it. They don't want to stand up against it. Even if they do see the truth. There are some people that won't see the truth, right? Because of whatever developmental stuff going on. But I noticed in my personal experiences that there will always be in a toxic dynamic, there will be like a dictator and people see the truth, but they're too scared to stand up against that person, that they'll just go along just to get along. That's what I think happened, in my opinion.
Right. The system enables cowardice and discourages individuality.
Yes.
And when you mentioned just I agree, the phenomenon of so many academically educated people falling for these schemes, it brought to mind this George Orwell quote. George Orwell said, "There are some ideas so absurd that only an intellectual could believe them."
Yep. I mean, where you're just taught to just think inside the box, not question things, because the school system, okay, so it's teaching kids how to read, how to write, basic math, or whatever, but are they teaching critical thinking skills? Are they teaching you common sense? But at the same time, I do wonder, is common sense something that's gifted to certain people? Is it can you go to school? You can't go to school and get common sense, in my opinion.
I think it's just sense because it's not common.
Yes.
Whatever.
So there's
Yeah.
certain things that it's embedded in certain individuals, and some of us have a high level of discernment than most people. Because when I started to see the dysfunction in my family, I was only 8 years old. No one taught me that. I just saw it, and I'm like, wait a minute. So I think some of us are born with something within us that allow us to be able to see more than the average person. And it's a gift, and it's also a curse, because it can be very painful. When you see everything, but the rest, everybody else don't see it. But if they do see it, unlike you, they're not willing to say something about it because they're too scared. And so I think some of us are born with a higher sense of justice, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But like I said, it can be a gift and a curse.
It seems so. And I've heard so many people say that they felt like they didn't have a choice but to speak up for freedom. That's such a paradox, isn't it? Not
Right.
feeling compelled
Right.
to speak out for freedom. And it's really intriguing to me, like, to look at this relatively small group of people. It has grown, but percentage-wise, I would say it's still small. As the group of modern day dissidents and whistleblowers in the Western world, and look at the personality traits. And I honestly see such a diverse pool of types of people, of temperaments, of races, ethnicities, walks of life. Are you seeing any sort of pattern amidst the modern day dissidents and whistleblowers that you're in touch with?
I kind of noticed that the people that spoke up against a lot of this stuff, some of them were people that had like unhealthy backgrounds. Some of them were scapegoated. Some of them were the ones that were the true speakers in their families, or whatever the case might be. Some of them were like, I don't know, an outcast in school and things of that nature. There's definitely a pattern of also being rebellion, of being like a free spirit and I wanted to be controlled and caged. That's what I've noticed amongst the people that I have come in contact with, that they have gone through things, and whatever the case might be, they just don't want to be controlled in that way. And that's something that I can personally speak for myself as well, that I never wanted to be controlled by a machine or anything like that. And so, yeah, I noticed that. And I had like discussions with people like on my live about this topics. But a lot of them have been scapegoated in their families. Some of them come from narcissistic families. Some of them have been abused in different shapes and forms. And they just became angry, and they were like, nope, I'm not doing this. And they was, be the odd one in the family. So there's definitely a pattern.
I've noticed that there's also a pattern of people who kind of enjoy being on the outside. Like, they enjoy the rebel. It's not just like, oh, like I have to do this. It's like, no, like this is probably, like, for me, I'm like, this is gonna be my downfall. Like, doing the opposite of what they tell me to do.
Yeah,
in the end, it might be, I enjoy it, but I wonder if it's gonna be my downfall in the end.
Hopefully not. But I mean, I enjoy it. Especially, the thing is with me, it's not that I want to rebel just to rebel. It's just when I notice that you're trying to keep me down, and you're not allowing me, and you're not allowing me to like be myself and live my life, that's when I have a problem. When you're trying to project your fears onto me, where you're trying to put me in a cage when I know I have the ability to fly really, really high and continue to change myself and become better. And as a result of me becoming better, I can give that gift to the world to positively influence other people. That's when I have a problem. And I will not allow you. And I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a government agent. I don't care if you're a government body, my boss. I don't care who, my mother, my father. I will go against you, not to be vindictive, not to be childish, not to be petty, but because of my inner feeling of like, I need to be free, and I will not allow you to come my wind in order to stay stuck, because you couldn't fulfill those things for yourself when you had the opportunity to do so. So I won't allow you to do that to me. That's why I'm like that. And also, I hate bullies. I've been bullied by family, by people at school, work, and I I like to fight for the underdog, and that's just something that I can't control. Like I don't know why it's like that in me, but it's something that I've been passionate about since I was a child, and that's why I will be the one to stand up and even stand up against people in my family that people were scared to do so. And I'm like, I don't care. I had to say it because the anger is gonna consume me. It's gonna make me sick, and I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like everybody else wants to pretend. If you're sick, you're sick. If this aunt of mine is an alcoholic, she's an alcoholic. If you're a drug addict, you're a drug addict. And if I have my own issues, I'm gonna say what my own issues are. Because I just feel like, how does that? I feel like freedom is accepting everything. Freedom is telling the truth. Freedom is not lying. Freedom is not manipulating. Freedom is not deceiving people. So that's why I do what I do, because I'm like, you want to be sick, you stay sick. I want to be healthy, and I want to soar, and I want to fly high and be happy first and foremost and be fulfilled. That's why I do what I do.
I love that you said you had something inside of you that you can't control, and you smile as you say that. You're like, and I love it. So you don't even seek to like control that beautiful part of you that stands up for the underdog. You don't seek to like be ashamed about it or burdened. You love it. You love it.
No, because the thing is that I wish I would have had somebody to stand up for me, and I didn't have that at all. Growing up, I couldn't go to a teacher. I didn't have a friend that, I didn't have a sibling. There was not one individual that stabbed at me and said, you know what, growing up, you know what, this is wrong. Like the way you guys are talking to her, treating her is wrong. So that's why I'm like, you know what, I know how that feels. I don't want somebody else to feel that way. And so I'm just gonna stand up for that person, and not because I want anything in return, it's because I feel like it's my moral duty to do that. Like I said, I wish somebody would have done it for me, but if I can do it for somebody else, then that's just what I'm gonna do, whether people like it or not.
Right. And as you're working on your interview series, and I know you're going to release that really soon, how are you finding that stories of victory are more attractive agents of change than stories of victimhood?
Well, especially within this community of people like myself and everyone else that, refuse and ended up getting fired. Some people were recently rehired, some of the firefighters, because they were like in this long lawsuit. But I mean, when it comes to victory, people were expecting for the unvaccinated to crumble. They were expecting for the vaccinated not to be able to survive financially. And yes, we were hit financially. I'm not going to sit here and say that listen, and many other people, but there's resilience in us, and we're still here standing, right? You would have thought that all of us would have ended up in homeless shelters. And I know one or two people that did end up in shelters, but I'm just saying, you would have thought that most of us would have ended up in homeless shelters. You would have thought that some of us would end up, I don't know, addicted to drug in the street, homeless. But no, we found a way, we fought, we continue to fight daily, and we managed, and we're still standing, we're still here, we still have our courage, we still are going to continue to speak up and stand up for what is morally correct. And so, to me, in my opinion, it's beautiful, because I remember having somebody say to me, watch, when you see yourself without money, you're gonna run and get that vaccine to go back to your job. It's been 2 years. I'm still not back in the school system. It hurt me. I've cried about it. I've lost money, but I've also made money through doing different things that I wasn't doing before. It's an opportunity to grow. It's an adversity that I can use as part of my testimony of, like, look, I lost everything. My credit got destroyed. I went back to my parents' house or whatever. I lost my career. I got arrested. The papers ruined my reputation. They wrote stuff about me, but I'm still standing. You can't take that away from me. I still walk in the street. I woke up with my head up high. And so do the other people that I interview. Yeah, they went through stuff. They went through hard times, but they still managed. And they still, what I noticed is that they still have that empathy in them. They still, like, they don't walk around angry all the time. They don't walk around behaving like victims all the time. They were given a situation, and they found a way through it, and they survive, and they're still here standing. They're wonderful, amazing people. They're loving people. They're kind people. And to me, that says a lot, because sometimes we're given certain situations, we turn bitter, we turn angry, we go around being nasty to everybody. No, they didn't do any of that. So I'm really, really proud to show that. I'm proud to show people, like, okay, you guys thought that if you didn't have your job that you were gonna die. We didn't die. We lost our career. We didn't die. We're still standing. We're still surviving. we are thriving as we speak. And so, in my opinion, what greater victory can be than when people thought like, oh, if we didn't get vaccinated, we were not going to be allowed to be in restaurants, we were not going to be able to be at work. Well, guess what? Now we can go to restaurants, and now some people were rehired, and some people have found other things to do. So to me, that's just beautiful that we didn't allow our outside circumstances to determine the future. So
absolutely. And where do you find humility in your healing?
honestly, I feel like the fact that, for example, that my career was taken away, that I lost money, that my credit was destroyed, something that I worked really, really hard and my credit score was really high, that I had to come back to my parents. I find that very humbling because it makes me understand that I'm not God. It made me understand that sometimes I will be powerless over my circumstances. But at the same time, I can use that self-reflect and still not allow that to let me become a better person, still not allow that to determine my future, still not allow that to stop me from opening up to what my potential is. And I could, again, the thing about this is that I could use that as a testimony. I ended up from having this job and making this amount of money and having these savings and doing whatever to back at my parents' house, and like, I'm not dead. I'm still here. I'm happy. I learned things about myself. I've learned that in life, sometimes you're gonna go through certain situations. Sometimes you can lose your job. Sometimes you can lose your life. Sometimes you can lose your legs, or whatever the case might be. But I haven't lost my soul, and I've learned from it. So to me, it definitely a humbling experience. And sometimes in life, you lose some, you win some, and you still gotta keep it moving. As long as you're alive, you still have the opportunity to continue to thrive and live past it. And again, you can use it as a testimony. I lost it all. I didn't have this, and now look at me. I'm making, I don't know, I'm a millionaire now. So something like that. Like, to me, that would be, just to give a testimony like that, to me, will be beautiful. And I do also learn from what happened to me about the fact that I want to do more stuff. I want to inspire people. I want to motivate people to do stuff. And who knows what the future, has for me. And I'll definitely use that to help. And like for example, like I used to work before the school system, I used to work in a homeless shelter, right? And I learned to even develop more empathy after seeing people's stories. But now, even when I see like a homeless person, I have even more empathy, because that could have been me. Had it not been from parents, I could have been in the street. I could have been in the homeless shelter myself. And so it just reminds us that we're human. No matter the career, no matter the amount of money, I'm still Joe. You can't take that away from me. The school system didn't take that away from me. The government didn't take that away from me. The amount of money didn't take that away from me, because our sense of self, our self-esteem doesn't come from outside things. It comes from accepting yourself as you are in the moment. And to me, it's been a painful, beautiful experience at the same time.
Mm. And we have, I share that belief that we have souls, that we are spiritual beings. We are more than just what happens to us, and we even are just more than our bodies and what happens to our bodies. Right. Something you said earlier about the soul of America I was just kind of sitting with it, because you seem kind of unsure whether America could have a soul. Do you think that it's possible for a country to have a soul, or maybe to develop one?
I think the soul of America has been taken captive, and that is obvious based on the things that we're seeing that are being pushed, the level of degeneracy that's being pushed in this country, particularly in more places than other. For example, like New York City, when you're having a pride parade and you have naked people and naked adults and their children there being taken to that. You won't take a child to a strip club, right? But we're publicly out in the open, freely allowing for the sexualization of children. We now have schools that are basically teaching children, showing them pornographic material. We now have libraries that have that out in the open. In my opinion, when you continue to sex traffic children, where children are getting even sexually abused in the home. So when you see that level of degeneracy and you know, in the libraries, out in the open, everywhere you go, it's just trans everything, trans everything. I don't know how America can go back to what it used to be because everything keeps going and being thrown in our face at a very fast pace, right? And like I was trying to say, once you continue to sex traffic children, you have the churches and a lot of religious institutions that are filled with liars and manipulators, and even some in those positions that are abusers of children, right? When we have toxic workplaces, when we are devaluing children, when we're sexualizing them, when we're traumatizing them, or whatever the case might be, when certain agendas are being pushed by the people that are supposed to instill in us or push for better moral values. Not to say that the politicians are their parents, because they're not, but they're supposed to be held at a higher standard. When we continue to have that and it's like out in the open, something that was being kept a secret and it's now out in the open, I don't think that America's soul can be saved. And I know it sounds very pessimistic, right? Because things are not getting better. They just keep getting worse as they progress and as they go by. And I particularly have a problem when it's being done to children, because children are supposed to be innocent, vulnerable, and are supposed to be loved, cherished, and protected. And when we're targeting children, we are destroying the minds of the next generations to come. So if we have a generation full of degeneracy, with 5-year or 6-year learning certain things they're not supposed to be learning, by the time they become adults, they're going to be sexually depraved, they're going to be sexually insane to the point that they might turn into rapists, they might turn into this. As a society, honestly, we're not getting better. We're here in New York City, we're seeing rapes out in broad daylight. We've seen people get robbed. Nothing is happening to them. There's no consequences. Our own government officials are saying, no, it's okay, turn a blind eye to it. When we have a society that's not willing to confront things and is not willing to change and say, wait a minute, let me change it. Let me ask God for repentance. Let's change it. When we don't have a society that's pushing for that, I'm sorry, I just don't think that the soul of America is going to be saved. And I feel like the soul of America has been captive, and we have had opportunities to go back and try to do better, but we're not doing better. We're just getting worse and worse. It's just the illusion of change, but no change is really coming to us. And we also need to take into consideration that we are the leaders of the so-called free world, right? Now we have other nations that are emulating that behavior. For example, Dominican Republic. The same thing that's happening here is happening in the Dominican Republic with the push of pride and the push of X, Y, and Z, right? They want to remove God from the schools, the president there. He wants to remove the Bible from the Dominican flag. He wants to not allow you to mention God inside schools. There's an invasion of illegal immigrants in the country, just like it's happening in the United States. And then we have places like Uganda and other African nations that are saying, no, we don't want this agenda. What is the United States doing? Oh, well, since you don't want to do the agenda, now we're going to put a sanction in you. Now we're not going to do business with you. So if you think about it like that, something is wrong. And the moral value of America is the decay. Like I feel like at one point this country had values or whatever, but now it's just all to degeneracy. And if you speak out against it, oh, people want to cancel you, people want to fire you from work, people want to say that you're just white supremacist, you're a racist, whatever. So I don't know. We as a society, we're not moving forward. It keeps getting worse. I don't know if you saw the video recently of the Pride Parade in which they're saying, we're queer, we're coming for your children. If you come for the children, you're coming for the destruction of the United States of America. And a lot of this new generation now, they all are into that. They think it's normal. And once you deviate a society from what's normal, once you deviate society from the moral things, we are going to create a society of degeneracy, and that's already happening. And how are we going to be able to reprogram the children to be like, okay, that's not normal, when they told that it's normal? The school told them it was normal. Some of the parents are telling them it's normal. The TV is telling them that it's normal. The artists that they follow telling them that they're normal. How I don't know. Me personally, I feel that America, it's only a matter of time that we have even more self-destruction, and as a society, we're not doing well, in my opinion.
Yeah, I actually would close with the phoenix metaphor. You know, the phoenix being destroyed in the fire and rising from the ashes. I think that's more so what America is going through, and perhaps it's not so much about the like whether America has a soul or not, but what soul we can collectively co-create for our country forward. I don't think there is a past version of this country we can go back to, and that we
Absolutely not.
and that we should go back to.
I mean, I agree, yes and no, but I feel like there was a time that at least this country kind of had some kind of moral values, or at least it seemed like a family values and certain things we just don't do. But now it's just everything goes. It doesn't matter. There's no boundaries. There's no limit. And when we have a society that there's no boundaries or there's no limits, everything goes. Everything goes, and everything's going to be acceptable, including things that should never be acceptable. So that's the part that I feel like I'm not sure we can go back. And obviously we can't go back because our eyes have already been open to a lot of things. So we can't fully go back. But I'm not too sure also that we will have a healthier version, because things are accelerating very fast. And it just seems like every day we're getting hit with something, and we don't have like a moment to like sit down and analyze and like, okay, let me relax a little bit, because when I try to do that, here's something else pops up here. And I don't have the time to like, everything's just coming at us from every angle or every minute. And it's to get us tired, it's to not allow us the ability to heal, to move forward from one thing, because then they throw something else and then now we have to heal from that. And it's an ongoing traumatic experience, in my opinion. And it's all by design in order to get us, in the cycle of complex PTSD, in order to get us to kill our spirit, our soul, and to stop us from the ability to fight this off and to resist the agenda. So because they want everybody to comply, but a few of us, we're just not built that way. We're not made that way. And we will continue, we will continue, no matter what I do, I will always continue to resist, regardless of what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, you're created that way. I love that about you, Jo. Well, this was such a gift to get on the mic with you finally, and I look forward to seeing you again the next time I get to New York, which will hopefully not be when there's a huge storm or orange apocalyptic skies.
Right.
Thank you again for coming on and for being true to who you are.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for allowing me to have a voice, and to allow me to share my story, and to also share the stories of many other people in New York City. And I'm pretty sure the people from other parts of the world will be able to connect to those things. So thank you so much.
Of course. And where can people find you and your series?
So it will be posted on YouTube. Jo Speaks Truth all together. So yeah, that's where I'll be posting it. And I also have my website, which is www.jospeakstruthalltogether.com. And that's where I'll be posting my podcast, and I will be posting other articles regarding what's going on, regarding healing and other things that I feel like it's necessary for society in order to kind of like, at least for those of us that are willing to do the job to move forward and heal, that I think will be extremely beneficial and important. So there's
Beautiful.
that.
And you're also on Instagram.
Yes, I'm also on Instagram. It's _ Jo Speaks Truth. I'm also on Twitter, which is Jo Speaks Truth _, and the same handle on TikTok, Jo Speaks Truth _. And I also have a backup Instagram account, Jo Speaks Truth, and the number 2, because they took down my main account last year. So
yeah, I remember. All right. Well, take care of yourself. I want to say keep fighting, but honestly, just take care of yourself.
I will.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jo. Take care.